Morning, everyone. I call this hearing to order. I want to make sure to note a couple of important requirements before we get going. Let me first say that standing House and committee rules and practice continue to apply during hybrid proceedings. All members are reminded that they're expected to adhere to these standing rules, including decorum. House regulations require members to be visible through a video connection throughout the proceedings, so please keep your cameras on. Also, please remember to remain muted until recognized to minimize background noise. If you have to participate in another proceeding, please exit this one and log back in later. In the event a member encounters technical issues that prevent them from being recognized for questions, I will move to the next available member of the same party and recognize that member at the next appropriate time slot, provided they've returned to the proceeding. For those members physically present in the committee room today, we'll also be following health and safety guidelines issued by the House attending physician. That includes social distancing and the use of masks. Members and staff are expected to wear masks at all times while in the hearing room, and I thank you in advance for your commitment to a safe environment for all here today. I'm proud to serve as chair of this subcommittee. Underserved, agricultural and rural small businesses have experienced some of the harshest outcomes of the COVID-19 pandemic. The road to recovery they face is long, and we should ensure to advance policies that will prioritize them so that they're not left behind. I hope to use this subcommittee's first hearing during the 117th Congress to examine the newly created Community Navigators Program. Throughout the COVID crisis, large numbers of minority-owned and rural small businesses found themselves on the outside looking in when trying to access emergency relief. During the early days of the Paycheck Protection Program and economic injury disaster loan advances, large financial institutions often prioritized larger customers at the expense of underserved rural small businesses. This lack of access to relief added insult to injury for small businesses bearing the brunt of the pandemic's economic impact. When COVID struck, many small businesses in rural areas were still financially and structurally rebounding from the Great Recession. During 2020, slow rural population growth and declining labor force participation led to a much slower employment rate in rural areas than elsewhere. And rural businesses also face a lack of access to capital in general, as well as broadband connectivity, making pivoting to digital offerings and adapting to the COVID business environment much more difficult. Minority-owned businesses have also been devastated by this crisis. Last year, the number of actively working self-employed business owners fell dramatically across the Black, Hispanic, and Asian American communities. The minority-owned firms that have been fortunate enough to avoid closure face harsher financial conditions and have less cash on hand than white firms do. These are the realities that led to the creation of the Community Navigator Pilot Program. Congress authorized the program as part of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. It will provide $100 million for grants to organizations to participate in the program and $75 million to support outreach and education. The funding for education and outreach will go towards offering services in the 10 most common languages other than English, making improvements to the SBA's website, implementing a media campaign to educate underserved communities, and establishing an SBA call center. The Community Navigator Program will supply grants to traditional business assistance organizations like small business development centers, women's business centers, and SCORE chapters. These institutions have deep ties to the communities they operate in and will engage trusted, culturally knowledgeable partners to conduct targeted outreach to specific sectors of the small business community. This outreach can manifest in various ways, including hiring dedicated staff to focus on these individual communities, or partnering with specialized community organizations and chambers of commerce via a hub-and-spoke model. The Community Navigator Program seeks to engage with underserved communities by providing technical assistance and enhanced outreach. For this program to meet its stated goal, Congress must closely monitor its rollout and work with the administration to make the program operate as effectively as possible. That's why this hearing today is important. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about the potential impact of the program on underserved and rural small businesses and ways this subcommittee can ensure as many small businesses benefit as possible. With that, I will now yield to the ranking member, Mr. Hagedorn, for his opening statement.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment as chair of this subcommittee. And on behalf of the Republican members and myself, we look forward to working with you during this Congress to especially help our small businesses and those in the rural communities and the agricultural sector. So
I very much look forward to working with you too, and I'm blessed to be two Congresses in a row working on a subcommittee with a member from Minnesota, and you got the other one sitting right in front of you.
and I know Congressman Stauber had a good working relationship with you as well, so thank you. Small businesses from all sectors of the economy have turned to the U.S. Small Business Administration programs for relief during the COVID-19 pandemic. Following the launch of the Paycheck Protection Program, created by Congress in March of last year, the SBA processed more than 14 years' worth of loans in less than 14 days, serving or assisting over 50 million small business jobs during the program's first round. That's actually just unbelievable when you think about it, the amount of work and loans that were run through in such a short period of time. The success of recovery programs like PPP is undeniable. However, there is no doubt that inconsistent guidance, burdensome paperwork, and administrative holds and delays have caused confusion for small businesses looking to utilize these programs. As Democrats continue to exploit the COVID-19 pandemic as an excuse to ram through their massive spending package and create new government programs, I believe Congress should focus on targeted and efficient relief that will aid small businesses as we reopen the economy. The partisan $1.9 trillion so-called American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 directed the SBA to establish a Community Navigator pilot program. This program will issue grants or contracts with nonprofits, resource partners, states, and localities, providing free assistance and resources to small businesses for programs made available during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is my hope that any new program created by Congress will aid existing SBA resource partners in their outreach to all communities and not duplicate current efforts. Southern Minnesota is home to a diverse group of small businesses. In my district, it is important that rural communities have the resources needed to contribute to the food supply, fuel rural America, and support other local businesses. As we move past the pandemic, it is critical that we ensure our farmers and ranchers have access to the resources needed to maintain operations. To support rural communities and agricultural small businesses, I've introduced H.R. 1411, the Bipartisan PPP Flexibility for Farmers and Ranchers Act, which would allow farmers and ranchers categorized as partnerships to utilize gross income when calculating PPP loans. I hope the members will support me on that bill. I think it can really help over 100,000 farm partnerships as we move forward. Today's hearing will explore the role of community navigators in researching underserved communities. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses on the outreach completed by existing SBA resource partners like small business development centers during the pandemic and how they have reached underserved areas, including remote and rural communities. I look forward to discussing the Community Navigator pilot program's objectives and deliverables in addition to the standards which the navigators will need to uphold. Congress has appropriated $175 million for this program, and we must ensure that we be proper stewards of the taxpayers' dollars and that the Navigator program yields beneficial results for small businesses. With the economy in recovery and egregious and arbitrary lockdowns finally coming to an end, new and existing federal COVID tools such as the Community Navigator pilot program need to be closely examined to determine the most effective, economical, and efficient next steps. Thank you for being here today and to discuss this important topic. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hagedorn. Very quickly, I'll explain how this hearing will proceed. Each witness will have 5 minutes to provide a statement, and each committee member will have 5 minutes for questions. Please ensure your microphone is on when you begin speaking and that you return to mute when finished. With that, let's introduce our witnesses. Our first witness today is Ms. Rebecca Shih, Executive Director of the American Business Immigration Coalition. As Executive Director of ABIC, Ms. Shih works directly with a steering committee of over 350 CEOs, university presidents, chambers of commerce, and immigrant advocates to support the passage of pro-immigrant policy at the state and federal levels. Welcome, Ms. Shih. Our second witness. One moment. Just 1 second. Our second witness is Ms. Bridget Weston. Ms. Weston is the CEO of SCORE. As CEO, Ms. Weston provides executive leadership and works directly and collaboratively with the Board of Directors to establish the vision and direction of SCORE. In her 10 years with the organization, she's developed an in-depth understanding of the needs and challenges facing SCORE's staff, its 300 chapters, and over 10,000 volunteers. Welcome back, Ms. Weston. I would now like to yield to Ms. Salazar to introduce our third witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity. And I would like to introduce my constituent, Ms. Pilar Guzman Zavala. Ms. Zavala is a small business owner in the city of Miami that I represent, and the CEO of Half Moon Empanadas, an Argentinian-style restaurant based in my district. She's also a mentor for women entrepreneurs in the city of Miami with the WinLab Miami from Babson College and the Florida International University Startup Food Lab program. She is a Ricardo Salinas Scholarship recipient for the Aspen Institute and a Young American Leaders Program Fellow from the Harvard School of Business. Additionally, Ms. Zavala is a Venture Cafe board member and a Miami Leadership and a Miami Fellow graduate. Small businesses are the foundation of our community. And during these difficult times, our local job creators have been absolutely devastated. I am committed to restoring our economy and delivering much needed COVID relief for our struggling small business owners in South Florida. Ms. Zavala's story is truly one of the American dream, just like mine. But her story is also one of the trials and tribulations, and we look forward to hearing from your experience, Ms. Zavala. Thank you so much for joining us today and for all of you for doing everything that you're doing for our community. Your determination over the last year is an example to all of us, small business owners, and I specifically and my staff. We're looking forward to visiting Half Moon Empanadas on our next trip to Miami. Thank you, Ms. Zavala.
Thank you, Congresswoman Salazar. And
yield back.
with snow still on the ground in Maine, and I'm guessing in Minnesota too, the background in Florida there looks pretty warm and looks nice. But thank you for the introduction and welcome to Ms. Zavala. And I would now like to yield to the ranking member, Mr. Hagedorn, to introduce our final witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next witness is Bruce Strong, who I believe you've met in the past and have worked with, and you were highly complimentary of his previous testimony, and I'm looking forward to it today. Mr. Strong is the State Director for the Minnesota Small Business Development Center Network. He has extensive experience in community and economic development and in the mortgage lending and banking industries. Mr. Strong is an Air Force veteran and graduated summa cum laude from National College with a degree in business administration and marketing. Yesterday, on March 17th, the nation celebrated Small Business Development Centers Day. Small Business Development Centers provide valuable resources to our small business constituents across the country, and I thank Mr. Strong and his SBDC colleagues for their critical work to promote entrepreneurship, small business growth, and the U.S. economy. Mr. Strong, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your service to our great country.
Thank you, Mr. Hagedorn. Thank you all for joining us today, and why don't we begin with opening statement from our witnesses. First, I will recognize Ms. Shi for 5 minutes.
Good. Good morning, Chairman Golden, Ranking Member Hagedorn. My name is Rebecca Shi, and I am the Executive Director of the American Business Immigration Coalition. ABIC believes that the economic recovery of our nation's small and underserved businesses is necessary to ensure our nation's recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Small business owners, especially African-American, immigrant, rural, and other underserved and isolated businesses, are the engines of their local economies. ABIC is a bipartisan coalition of 1,200 employers, CEOs, and business associations across 13 states, including Florida, Texas, Maine, Colorado, New York, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Illinois, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, North and South Carolina. Over the last 11 months, ABIC created and implemented a small business recovery technical assistance program, leveraging a community navigator model. This program provides one-to-one technical assistance for small, underserved, minority-owned businesses and growers to access critical resources, including but not limited to the Paycheck Protection Program, federal and state small business loans and grants. ABIC thanks Congress and President Biden for including $100 million for community navigators in the American Recovery Plan. We also thank Chairman Ben Cardin, Senators Marco Rubio and Susan Collins, and Chairwoman Nydia Velázquez for working tirelessly over the last 11 months to make improvements to the PPP, especially for the smallest borrowers, growers, and their lenders like CDFIs and MDIs. The Community Navigator model utilizes local nonprofits or 501c3s in a complementary, not competitive fashion with existing SBA technical assistance programs like the SBDCs, the MDCs, and SCORE. The unparalleled magnitude of the COVID-19 pandemic, forced shutdowns, and disproportionate impact on small, minority-owned, rural businesses and growers required a comprehensive, common-sense, grassroots response. This community navigator model we utilize in Illinois, Florida, Texas, and South Carolina to assist these growers, Black and immigrant entrepreneurs. This program assisted Pilar Guzman, whom you'll hear later, and introduced by our Congresswoman Salazar, the Latina owner of Half Moon Empanadas. We also assisted Chalmers Carr, the owner of Titan Farms, the largest peach grower in the country based in South Carolina. He was denied a PPP loan by his bank because they did not understand how to calculate his 1,200 H-2A workers. And Stacey Armstrong, an African-American woman entrepreneur, a single mother who employs less than 10 people at her gourmet popcorn shop. And she was denied a PPP first because her bank prioritized larger firms. Each of these entrepreneurs was ultimately assisted in getting a PPP loan by a community navigator and the Self-Help Federal Credit Union, a CDFI that understands how to work with small and rural businesses. Through this model, ABIC directly assisted 219 small businesses and growers to receive over $8.1 million in PPP loans with an average amount of $37,000. This community navigator model was later adopted by the state of Illinois Department of Commerce and the Cook County, Illinois Economic Recovery Initiative to disperse local business recovery grants allocated by the CARES Act. The state of Illinois awarded $88 million in business recovery grants to Black, rural, and immigrant entrepreneurs. I have a chart that I submitted as evidence just to show that using the community navigator model, we were able to ramp up access to these grants to small, minority-owned, and rural businesses. A couple of things I just wanted to point out that as the navigator model ramped up from October to December of 2020, Black participation increased by 25%, and Latino participation increased between 30 and 46%. Over half of the application for Black and Hispanic applicants were received in November and December as a result of the Navigators Program technical assistance. And over 2/3, nearly 70% of our Spanish applications came in November and December as the Navigators did outreach and document preparation for these borrowers. In sum, our community navigators had over 20,000 applications by the end of October and throughout the rest of December, and we were able to award, as I said, up to $88 million. The last thing that I would just mention is the mechanics of this navigator model. It is a hub and spoke model. The hub is the lead nonprofit responsible for capacity building, train the trainers. The spokes are the grassroots nonprofit, sort of your boots on the ground, conducting the direct technical assistance, document preparation for the businesses. A successful hub and spoke system creates an assembly line that feeds directly into a financial institution, a CDFI. And the goal is that the application is in excellent shape by the time it is received by that financial institution, so we can ensure efficiency and processing at scale. The second piece is there's a high accountability structure to this model. As you all know, nearly every CDFI or financial institution sends a processing number to the PPP applicant when the application has been received. And so what we require is not just general outreach or numbers of emails sent or just webinars. We ask that each navigator must demonstrate the receipts for these for the outreach, so that we know that money is getting deposited in the banks. So I will just wrap up and just say thank you very much for the opportunity to testify on behalf of this model.
Thank you, Ms. Weston. You're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman Golden, Ranking Member Hagedorn, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to offer testimony today. SCORE is the nation's largest network of volunteer business mentors with more than 10,000 volunteers across 240 chapters, offering free and confidential advice and educational workshops to small business owners. Founded in 1964 as a resource partner of the SBA, SCORE has helped more than 11 million entrepreneurs to start, grow, or troubleshoot their small business. Last year, SCORE helped its clients to start over 45,000 new businesses and create nearly 75,000 new jobs. And despite the challenging business climate of this pandemic, SCORE helped 89% of our clients stay in business throughout the year. SCORE is the most effective, efficient business formation and job creation engine funded by the federal government. In 2020, our cost to create a new job was $156 and $259 to create a new business. And for every $1 appropriated to SCORE, our clients return $67 in new federal tax revenue, further demonstrating that SCORE is a good steward of the federal dollar. SCORE volunteers are the lifeblood of our organization and are passionate about helping small businesses succeed. Our volunteers come from all across the country with diverse backgrounds and experience in different industries. Our core services are mentoring, educational workshops, and online resources. Last year, SCORE volunteers held over 315,000 mentoring sessions, guiding and supporting our clients through the tremendous challenges brought on by the pandemic. Many business owners told us they would not have applied for a PPP or an EIDL loan without a SCORE mentor to walk them through the process. And our high rates of client satisfaction are captured by our Net Promoter Score of 87, with 70 being considered excellent. In addition to mentoring, SCORE provides virtual webinars on our website, and our SCORE chapters offer local workshops that are in person or virtual. These workshops drew over 464,000 attendees last year. Knowing that the pandemic has hit some businesses harder than others, one of SCORE's key areas of focus is fostering diversity, equity, and inclusion, both for clients and volunteers. Women and minority volunteers climbed to 38% of total volunteers last year, and this 5% increase represents the single biggest annual growth since we began tracking these metrics in 2012. SCORE currently serves a diverse range of small business owners. 60% of our clients are women, and 46% are minorities. Early this year, we launched SCORE for Black entrepreneurs as part of our SCORE for All initiative to help serve disadvantaged businesses. We plan to add more SCORE for All campaigns to help these businesses survive and thrive, supporting women, rural entrepreneurs, veterans, the 50 and older community, and disabled entrepreneurs. SCORE is working harder than ever to reach underserved entrepreneurs, leveraging our community relationships nationally and locally. National partnerships include the BIPOC Support Foundation, Women Entrepreneurs Grow Global, and the Latino Coalition, who introduced SCORE to new communities of small business owners. Across the nation, our SCORE chapters are already operating as effective community navigators by working in local communities to help underserved business owners. For example, over the past year, SCORE Cleveland has rededicated itself to bring its services to the minority business community. The chapter has partnered with leading nonprofits that target these communities, and services have more than doubled over last year. When the pandemic hit, SCORE pivoted to deliver virtual mentoring and education without missing a day of service. And we accommodated a 30% increase in services last year without any increase in funding. Now we are at capacity and will not be able to grow without additional resources. Based on SCORE's continued demonstrated impact, increased demand for services, and our plans to reach more business owners in underserved and disadvantaged communities, SCORE is respectfully requesting an increase in $9.5 million in funding for a total FY2 appropriation of $21.7 million. That additional funding would be spent to increase mentoring and education by reducing the administrative burden on volunteers, provide more direct funding to local chapters for community outreach, and focus to help more underserved businesses. With this relatively small investment, we can provide even greater value to the business owners and the economy. The increased funding would allow us to deliver more than 500,000 additional client services, with a projected outcome of 100,000 additional new businesses started or jobs created. SCORE's mentoring and education are critical to helping small businesses overcome their challenges and succeed. SCORE stands ready to help our nation's most vulnerable small business owners so they can keep their doors open and keep people employed. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Ms. Zavala, you're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Hello. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be speaking with you all today. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen to my story. I think it's a story that reflects, the reality of many small businesses like mine. Thank you, Congresswoman Salazar, for that kind of introduction. I'm here in Miami. It's 77 degrees. So my name is Pilar Guzman Zavala. I'm the CEO of Half Moon Empanadas. I represent one of the almost, more than 30 million small businesses in America. I also represent today the minority in every sense. I'm a woman, I'm Hispanic, I'm an immigrant. And now my company is in an industry where there has been so much suffering and closures that I'm also one of the, minority restaurants that are still open. I came to America from Mexico when I was 22 years old, right after college. I went to Georgetown School of Foreign Service because I wanted to understand how to create economic development, how to alleviate poverty. Little did I know back then that I would end up creating, this impact as an entrepreneur in Miami, and that my dream would become creating a new food category in America with empanadas. And that this immigrant that had a hard time speaking in English in Georgetown would end up speaking with the president of the United States. Half Moon Empanadas is a small business in Miami. We're a concept of empanadas. Before the pandemic, we've been in business 12 years. Before the pandemic, we had 14 stores open. The Miami Airport, the University of Miami, different non-traditional locations here. And, our story wasn't easy. It took us 7 years to get a paycheck from our company. We did everything wrong, and we almost went bankrupt. It took us 10 banks locally to actually get us our first financing for our store in the airport. So I do know what it is to go through the financial system and understand how that works. When COVID hit, It was literally a year ago, March 13. That week, we saw all of our stores closed. In a week, everything was like, what happened? It was really scary. And I see how great and how blessed we are to live in this country because we were able to apply to PPP. It took us three banks, three banks to get no's because the large bank was not responsive. The medium bank was overwhelmed. And so thanks to the community navigator, I was able to get, the support that we needed. They connected us with a local bank that approved us quickly. I mean, in 2 days we were approved. So these help us stay afloat and keep our salary, people in payroll. And because I'm also a mentor here in the community and I'm part of a network of businesses, I joined the effort too. And we were able to help, with ABIC, with Becca's team and Impact Fund here in Miami, other women and Hispanic-owned companies to get the support, from processing documentation, gathering paperwork. We actually got a lot of these businesses approved for PPP. And so besides the PPP, because we entrepreneurs don't stop and we don't like to stay still, we didn't stop there as a company. We did not only rely on the help of the government. We reinvented ourselves. We became a restaurant in Miami making meals for seniors through a Miami-Dade County contract. And we started our efforts on the digital space, to sell empanadas locally and nationally. So when I think about the whole year, I was thinking about this session and I'm like, it must have been so hard for all you guys, government officials, trying to figure out what to do and coming up with an entire package to save our economy and our community. So I wanted to at least just take 2 seconds to thank you for the work you've done and for the effort, because it truly has made a difference in many businesses like mine. I had the honor to speak to President Biden twice in the last month. On our first call, I raised my hand. My husband could not believe that I actually interrupted the president. And I said, could I please give you a suggestion? And my suggestion to him was, please remember that the small businesses are not the large 300 businesses. There are a lot of tiny businesses that are what I consider truly small, of 1, 5, 10, 20 people. And that we need to focus on that because we sustain the economy. So as we speak today, I'm opening one store in Congresswoman Salazar's district. I cannot express to you how challenging it has been to open that store because of COVID, because how hard it's been to hire. It's just really difficult compared to before. But I am a believer, and I believe change is possible. And I truly believe that challenges bring opportunities. And so I think that this whole crisis has shown us, all of us, how to work together and how to actually focus on the things that really matter. I'm thankful for President Biden's leadership and for you guys' leadership, for Congress to approve, the help. I do believe that this Community Navigator program was helpful to me and to many here locally, and that we should, continue to do this kind of work. Thank you so much for your time and your support.
Thank you. And finally, we will recognize Mr. Strong for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Golden. Thanks also to Ranking Member Jim Hagedorn and Member Pete Stauber, who are both from the great state of Minnesota, where I live and work. I'd also like to recognize Nydia Velazquez, Chairwoman of the House Small Business Committee, Ranking Member Blaine Lutkemeyer, and Representatives Angie Craig and Dean Phillips, who are also from Minnesota, for their many years of service and tireless support of small businesses throughout the country. My name is Bruce Strong, and I'm the State Director of the Minnesota Small Business Development Network, or SBDC. SBDCs have been operating throughout the country for more than 40 years, and in Minnesota alone during that time, we provided more than 960,000 professional consulting hours to help 95,000 clients start 5,200 businesses, helped more than 80,000 existing businesses, and helped them secure $3.2 billion in new business capital. Since March of last year, our staff has worked tirelessly and literally day and night to double the number of clients that we serve in a typical year in response to the COVID pandemic. Demand for SBDC assistance skyrocketed as business owners needed help with applications for the PPP and EIDL loan programs, or to reimagine their businesses due to economic shutdowns. Recently, the U.S. Small Business Administration introduced the Community Navigators Program. They state the intent of the program is to broaden and intensify outreach and technical assistance to targeted sectors of the small business community, including persons with disabilities, women, veterans, and/or those in minority, immigrant, rural, or other underserved communities, using a hub-and-spoke delivery model. We don't yet have the details as to exactly how the program will operate, but several SBDCs, including Minnesota, are working with SBA on a pilot of the program to build models for the future of this effort. A total of $175 million has been allocated to the program under the American Rescue Plan. This is a significant sum, and we're pleased to be working with SBA to develop the program. Assuming that is, there is no requirement to provide matching funds for the program. SBDCs have long worked with other community organizations to reach rural and underserved markets. But like other businesses, the pandemic forced us to reimagine our own business model. To continue meeting the surge in demand, we're creating even more partnerships between the SBDC and local community organizations. In Minnesota, for instance, we just signed a contract with First Children's Finance to provide specialized assistance to new and existing child care businesses. We're working to complete a similar contract with the African Development Center to increase their services throughout the state, and I'm seeking to create even more partnerships. The Northern California SBDC has just launched a new inclusivity project that provides a simple but effective approach to reach out to the Black and African community there. It goes beyond simply providing outreach by creating an actual challenge for the SBDC and local partners to provide real social change to obtain capital and start new Black-owned businesses. The project has seen tremendous early success and was met with great enthusiasm when presented to SBDC state directors across the country just last week. So much so that we'll be soon adopting this project for implementation in America's SBDCs everywhere. America's SBDC wishes to express strong support for the Community Navigators program, and we envision it will fit perfectly into these plans. We're particularly supportive of the outreach portion of the funding. SBDCs have too long been a best-kept secret. We've been prohibited from marketing our services, and that has truly hampered our outreach. That prohibition has only recently been lifted by the SBA. The Community Navigator program will ensure that entrepreneurship education reaches all parts of the small business community, and it will go a long way to help our efforts to reopen the economy. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you to all our witnesses, and we appreciate all the testimony that you've shared with us. We'll now move on to questions, and I'll begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. I think I'll begin with Mr. Strong. And I did want to point out that I agree with Mr. Hagedorn that the PPP program worked well. For that matter, I think I agree with pretty much everyone that's joined us and testified today about that as well. I'll also look forward to hearing a little bit about HR 1411, your bill on PPP, and support of farm partnerships. Last Congress, you joined me, Congressman Hagedorn, in co-sponsoring the SBDC reauthorization legislation, which we passed through the House. Did not get taken up by the Small Business Committee in the Senate, so hopefully we can continue that work in this Congress. But Mr. Strong, I obviously there are some who might naturally conclude that some of the groups out there like SBDCs or SCORE could view the creation of a new program such as this one as potentially duplicative or in competition with the services you provide. You just ended by talking by putting forward really an endorsement of the program. So I want to give you the opportunity to say a little bit more about the potential effects of the program, how you think it will interact with SBDCs, and also if you have any concerns that should be avoided in order to make sure that the programs are really complementary.
Thank you, Chairman Golden. I don't view the program as being duplicative or competitive with what we're already doing. Rather, I view it as being complementary to what we're already doing. As I've mentioned, we've long had partnerships with other local organizations to help broaden the reach of the SBDC, and particularly to provide deep reach into those markets that have typically been underserved. Again, we've long worked here in Minnesota with the Metropolitan Economic Development Association, or MEDA, with the Neighborhood Development Center, with other local nonprofit groups, and specifically those that serve those underserved communities and communities of color. So again, I believe that the Navigators program will help us reach even more community organizations and partner with more organizations, as we again have recently done with the African Development Center and First Children's Finance here in Minnesota.
Thank you very much. And you made a great point, by the way, about previous prohibitions on marketing and outreach. What good are these services to businesses if they don't know that they exist in the first place? So look forward to continue to work with the SBDCs and SCORE and others on fixing that problem in this Congress as well. Next, I guess I would direct a question to Ms. Weston from SCORE. Through your work with underserved and rural small business owners and entrepreneurs, what resources and technical support are most often requested, and how do you think this new partnership with the Community Navigator program can help address these?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. And with SCORE Mentors seeing tens of thousands of small business owners each year, we really do have a pulse on what the challenges that small business owners are facing. In our mentoring sessions, the common themes that our mentors hear do relate to funding. Do these small businesses have sufficient funding or cash flow? And along those lines too, attracting and retaining customers. Those are the two biggest challenges that we see. With SCORE partnering across the country with local community partners, as well as nationally with some of the partnerships I had mentioned previously, it helps connect those business owners struggling with funding opportunities, access to capital, cash flow questions, or customer questions with those people that have that been there, done that expertise. We have seen that the PPP and EIDL programs were more successful when they were partnered with a mentor like SCORE SBDC. And we want these new federally funded opportunities, which are extremely valuable to these business owners, be able to take advantage of it. And SCORE mentors are ready to help those most vulnerable small business owners navigate. The key is to make sure that they are connected to those disadvantaged and underserved communities. We're doing that already across SCORE chapters. Maine, for example, partners with a number of organizations like the USDA, the Maine Farmland Trust, to make sure that that one-on-one business mentoring service is provided to make sure they have the best opportunity for success.
Thank you very much for that. I hear repeatedly from business owners in Maine about how valuable the programs and services offered by SCORE are in starting businesses and making tough decisions to keep them going as well. So thank you for that partnership in Maine. My time has expired, and the ranking member, Mr. Hagedorn, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was listening to testimony, especially from Ms. Shi and Ms. Zavala, and You're saying how important it is to make sure that our small businesses, all of them, have access to especially Paycheck Protection Program and everything else needed in order to get, especially at this time, from one side of the coronavirus to the other. And so I think the work of the committee, led by our committee chairwoman Velasquez and ranking Republican Lukemire, was, and you, Mr. Chairman, as well, and many members of this subcommittee, all of them, I think, to extend the Paycheck Protection Program by 60 days, that bill that was just passed this week, pretty important. So hopefully we can work with our Senate colleagues and get that done and make sure that all of our businesses are cared for and have proper access to the program. So, you know, Mr. Strong, I listened to your testimony. It's very good. And I certainly am supportive of small business development centers and women's business centers, veterans business centers, all of it. But so you said you think this is more of a cooperative deal, these navigators. It's not going to be competition with you. What do you foresee them going out and basically bringing the business back to you? Is that kind of the concept, or could you let me know what your thoughts are on that?
Sure. Thank you, Representative Hagedorn and Chairman Golden, for that question. Again, the model envisions a hub and spoke delivery model. In my estimation, that's the SBDCs acting as the hub and these local community partners acting as the spokes. And again, that's similar to how our model has worked in the past. Oftentimes, particularly with communities of color and really even in underserved markets and rural markets, folks really want to talk to somebody from their own community. They want someone that looks like them, that can identify with them. And really, that's the strength, in my estimation, of the community partners in this hub and spoke approach. So I do believe it's going to be effective. I think the outreach can actually be a combination of that provided by the hub, by the SBDC, to make sure that folks are aware that the Community Navigator program exists and what it does. But then also those local partners who can reach out specifically to the groups within their local markets and bring clients into the program that way as well.
Thank you. I do really appreciate the work that you do on behalf of Minnesotans, and spoken to many of your clients over the last several years who have been very much aided by the work that you perform. During the Obama administration, we had Obamacare and we had these community navigators then, and there were some problems with fraud and just other types of things. Are there standards in place, do you think, with the Small Business Administration, that we can make sure that these folks are going to be trained up properly and we won't have any legal or ethical problems? Mr. Strong, that's for you again.
Chairman Hagedorn, or Representative Hagedorn, yes, I do. I believe SBA does a great job of oversight of the program that we currently run, our regular core program that's been in operation for 40 years. They have strong measures in terms of metrics and goals that we must achieve under that program. I believe the same will be true under the Navigator program. And as long as we have a clear objective as to what this program is to do and what it's to accomplish, I'm fully confident that the SBDCs will absolutely come to bat and make sure that the program is successful, that it meets the actual challenges. And again, that's already being demonstrated most recently in this Northern California SBDC program. So absolutely, I believe we will, once we set clear objectives and metrics for the program, we'll be able to accomplish them.
So I hope members on both sides would make sure we do the proper oversight and follow up on that, and make sure what you're saying is going to be going to work out. Lastly, real quickly on broadband access, and I'll stay with you, Mr. Strong, just since we only have about 30 seconds. How important is it that we make sure that folks, not just in rural communities, but all across the country, wherever they might be, have access to broadband and high-speed access in order to do their work and to market their businesses and so forth?
Thanks again for that question, Representative Hagedorn. Clearly, the COVID pandemic underlined the importance of a strong broadband network. When we're all confined to our homes and required to work from our homes, without a strong broadband network, we're sunk. We're in really big trouble. And that's why I believe that, support for broadband funding is critical. Here in Minnesota, the legislature is contemplating large-scale programs to improve and increase broadband outreach and the broadband network here in Minnesota. I hope that I trust the same is happening in other states across the country. And I hope nationally we can come to a broadband program that helps, provide a stronger network across the entire country.
Thank you. I'm out of time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman yields back. We'll now recognize Representative Jason Crow, Chairman of the Subcommittee on Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Workforce Development.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to all the witnesses for coming in today. Really great testimony and really good information for us as we look at these programs and how to better improve them. I think about the Community Navigator program. I'm reminded of this program in my district where the city of Aurora actually partners with a local nonprofit, the Village Exchange Center. It has a program called the Natural Helpers Program, where immigrants and refugees who have been here longer actually help fellow immigrants and refugees who have recently arrived actually navigate nonprofit resources and find their way around the community and better integrate in. And I think it's within that spirit that the Community Navigator pilot program is trying to help our underserved businesses the most. So in that vein, starting with Ms. Shi. Ms. Shi, could you just tell me your thoughts on what types of private nonprofit organizations are best suited to serve as community navigators?
Thank you so much for that question, Congressman. And we had the same experience at the start of the pandemic after the Paycheck Protection Program was rolled out. Immigrant-owned businesses, refugee-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, came to us and they had not heard about these other SBA programs or SBDCs. And so we trained local nonprofits. So nonprofits that they know in their community that perhaps that they've gone there for English classes or citizenship classes. And so they started doing the one-to-one document preparation, outreach, and education about the PPP, and actually helping sometimes to even open an email record. And as you know, you need SBA processing for these host of hand-holding and to get them access to loan. At this point, Pilar, the three lenders denied her until we had a navigator that assisted her, and Pilar is much more sophisticated compared to some of our businesses and sole providers or ones that are linguistically isolated. Better to do this kind of work are the ones that have the grassroots. But we all know folks they're able and willing to our businesses, our sole proprietors, to our oral business. Hey, do you know about these programs? Do you know that there's a schedule? And thanks to all of you, but also be retroactive. The kind of outreach is important. And once they're made aware of the program, then our navigators hold their hand and go through the entire document preparation for them. Because of the pandemic, for a lot of these smallest businesses, this is their first interaction with a government loan or a grant program, right? And so they're afraid, they're concerned, and it's we all know if you check the wrong box, right, that affects your credit score. And then getting them access to a lender. So I would say the best types of nonprofits are not so much in our experience, the ones that have done this work before, but really are willing to get in the gutter and be on the ground and hold the hands of our small businesses and get them through from the beginning to the end. And we have a very, very rigorous accountability measure because with Pilar, we need to show that the money landed in the bank. So
I'll stop you there. I want to give Ms. Zavala an opportunity to weigh in on this as well, but I appreciate that perspective and your thoughts on that very much. Ms. Zavala, any thoughts on what you think would be the best nonprofits that could perform these types of services?
Yes, thank you for the question. I saw that the CDFIs, the small, really small one branch, banks, the Acción, which now I think it's a different name. Those organizations that are close to the small, what I mean when I say close is they understand the issues they have with not having a perfect P&L, right? I have a perfect P&L. I didn't have it 10 years ago. So understanding, I think what's good about working with these local organizations is that they understand how to work on the context of that small business, which banks don't understand. So, and I think the issue of, it's an issue of capacity. There is the SBA, but is there the capacity to serve all of these? I think the numbers show that there is not the capacity. We need more.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm out of time, but really great thoughts from both of you. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. We'll now recognize Representative Roger Williams, Vice Ranking Member of the full committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your leadership. Ranking Member, thank you. And our witnesses, thank all of you for being here today. And I'm a small business owner myself. I've been in business 50 years and still have my business and employ hundreds of people back in Texas. And I appreciate your stories. They're just so that they show the power of this great country. Attending a trade school and learning a skill can be just as valuable as going to a traditional four-year college. I'm a strong advocate of career and technical education programs and push back against the belief that a college degree is necessary to get ahead in America. If someone learns a skill, they are on their way to eventually translating their abilities into starting their own small business. However, learning how to run a small business is no easy task, as we all know. So my question to start out with, Ms. Weston, you touched a little bit about this earlier, but maybe you can go deeper. Can you discuss some of the largest challenges you see from young entrepreneurs who come to your organization wanting to take a chance and start their own businesses, and how any way the SBA can better utilize resources to spur new business creation? Because at the end of the day, risk and reward is the American dream.
Thank you for the question, Congressman. And we know at SCORE that being an entrepreneur or a small business owner, and you know this too, is challenging under the best of circumstances. And this year has been hard on everyone. SCORE has data that there are some groups of businesses that have struggled more than others, but being a business owner and an entrepreneur, you feel that you have to be that person who does everything, that you are the Jack or Jill of all trades, and you have to wear all of the hats. What SCORE and SBDC and other organizations that provide technical support do is we are that step-by-step guide to these businesses that help them fill those gaps when they don't have that information on the P&L, like small business owners do. You might be an expert as, a plumber or a hairstylist, but you don't necessarily have that knowledge about how to do your accounting. That's where SCORE and the SBA resources come into play. SCORE stands ready for small business support for everyone. Some business owners do have unique challenges. We've been talking about historically underrepresented groups and rural business owners, and there are some needs that those groups have a greater need for, and we can address those too. The important thing is, with 30 million small business owners out there, that we as the resource partners and the technical assistants get out there, get the word out, connect with these community organizations that have the reach into those communities so that these business owners know SCORE and other resource partners are here to help and provide that support. And when the business owner steps away and uses a mentor to answer those questions, they are much more likely to be successful.
That's great. I think it's important to mind there's a big difference between a sale of $1 and the gross of $1. So thank you for helping on that. Secondly, I think the Navigators program has the potential to help a large number of small business realize the resources that they have at their disposal. However, in the past, there have been some serious issues of fraud, and we've talked about that this morning, and of leaking sensitive consumer information that led to some security threats against individuals. Since we've just allocated $100 million to this program, we must make sure that we are being good stewards of taxpayer dollars and not repeating the mistakes of the past. So, Ms. Shih, for you, Can you discuss what safeguards the SBA should put in place to ensure that this program is not opening itself up to waste, fraud, and abuse?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Congressman, for that question. And that's extremely important. So when we ran the Navigator model in several states, including Texas, Florida, and South Carolina, we asked all of our navigators to show receipts for the PPP received by their small businesses. That is part of our accountability structure. I think it's very easy just to send a whole bunch of emails and do a webinar and said that we assisted businesses, right? But we actually, especially during this global pandemic, as our businesses are struggling, we need to see that these funds are getting into the bank accounts of our small businesses, as well as staying with them to go through the forgiveness process to turn the loan into a grant. So that's number one. And number two is working with a trusted CDFI, MDI, or financial institution to make sure that all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and as we know with our financial institutions, there's also multiple layers of assurance and accountability. So that's extremely important to us, and this is taxpayer dollars, and these are the local engines of our economy, and so we need to make sure that these funds are getting to the folks that need it the most.
Okay, thank you to the witness, and I yield my time back.
Gentleman yields, and we'll now recognize Representative Pete Stauber from Minnesota's 8th District.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all the witnesses for providing the testimony today. Mr. Strong, thanks once again for coming to our Small Business Committee hearing and testifying. I'm sure all the Minnesota members really appreciate you coming here again and giving us quality time. I'd just like to give you a moment to share what work for the Minnesota SBDCs what does it look like during the pandemic, and how has it changed from what you had done prior to the pandemic?
Thank you, Representative Stauber. Thank you for those kind words. What has changed for us is just the sheer volume of the questions and the demand that we're receiving from the public. Obviously, the Paycheck Protection Program and the EIDL loan programs were critical to those small businesses that were most affected as a result of the pandemic. And helping those businesses wade through the myriad regulations for both programs, both the PPP and EIDL loan programs, and the changing requirements that occurred during those programs just caused so much confusion in the marketplace. And really, we spent a great deal of time just trying to decipher those changes ourselves and then interpret those changes to the small business community so that we could most effectively help them apply for their loan, help them apply for forgiveness under the Paycheck Protection Program. We're still, to some extent, struggling with issues regarding that. And again, this latest deadline of the Paycheck Protection Program expiring and then hopefully being re-extended, just kind of creates ripples throughout that program.
Well,
and so again, just the sheer volume of what we've done, as Chairman Golden stated, SBA processed 14 years worth of loan applications in a 14-day period of time.
Yeah, and
that,
Mr. Strong,
by itself is going to create problems. So,
Mr. Strong, I want to just thank you and your organization for helping out the small businesses and helping with the lending institutions, because when we passed that legislation, there were some blind spots, and when we knew better, we did better with the flexibility portion afterwards. Mr. Strong, prior to the pandemic, northern Minnesota was plagued with the child care deserts. The situation got worse during the pandemic. In your testimony, you mentioned that Minnesota SBDC signed a contract with First Children's Finance to provide specialized assistance to new and existing childcare businesses. Can you elaborate on this, on the work you're doing?
Certainly. Thank you again for the question. First Children's Finance has been around for a long time. They're a nonprofit group. They're a CDFI as well. And again, they specialize in helping childcare businesses with all of the nuances, the legislation, and the requirements that are expected of a childcare business. And so partnering them with the SBDC will help broaden the outreach, will help broaden their outreach. It helps bring funding to them so they can pay additional counselors to come alongside. But it also helps the SBDC because we can help with the business aspect of running a childcare business, but we may not necessarily understand some of the nuances of those requirements that are required. And you're exactly right. The childcare industry was struggling even pre-COVID. In Minnesota, we found that new small businesses were unable to grow because they weren't able to find adequate childcare, particularly in rural markets. And so again, we're hoping and trusting. We believe that partnering with First Children's Finance will be a great benefit to the SBDC and all of Minnesota.
And Mr. Strong, I think that's really great news because we know when there's adequate, secure childcare, that benefits the economy, especially coming out of this COVID crisis. We want to make sure that the workforce is there to be had, and having safe, secure childcare is certainly a priority. So, Mr. Strong, once again, thank you for your testimony, and we'll see you shortly. And Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields and will now recognize Representative Claudia Tenney from New York's 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to Ranking Member Hagedorn and the witnesses as well. Great to hear from all of you, and thank you for holding this important hearing. Obviously, the COVID-19 situation has been challenging for all of us and all Americans, and especially our small business community, which are truly the backbone of our economy, and I can't emphasize that enough. As a small business owner in New York's 22nd District, over 94% of the workforce in my district come from small businesses. So our community success, our economic success depends on the success of our small businesses. Last week, I launched a small business outreach tour to meet with business leaders and employers across the 22nd District. So far, I've met with over 30 businesses, have spoken with hundreds in the past, and have had the opportunity to discuss their priorities and their needs for relief and recovery. The two common questions that I get are what programs and resources are available, and second, how do we navigate some of these cumbersome application processes and rules? And I know as a business owner, also as an attorney, federal programs, have helped thousands of businesses in my state, particularly in our underserved and rural communities, which my district is. We must continue to reach out to these underserved communities and educate our employers and how to use these resources and their employees. It's also imperative to understand that these programs need to be made simpler and easier to use because so many small business owners are so busy running their businesses, they really don't have time to hire compliance teams and teams of lawyers. And I know that as my business was started over 75 years ago, and I've been one of the owners for over 35 years, so I understand how complex this can be. And I really appreciate our witnesses. And my first question, and some of these have been answered, I'd like to address to Ms. Weston. And first, I want to say thank you so much for SCORE. I have, as a business owner, also many of my colleagues have used SCORE, and it's been a wonderful asset to people in the business community. So I just wanted to ask you, so many of these business owners have said this is getting the money in the Navigator program has been so daunting. What do you consider the biggest barrier, and what recommendations do you have to fix those issues briefly, if you could?
Well, thank you so much for the question, Congresswoman. And maybe one day you will consider becoming a SCORE volunteer since you are a small business owner yourself. So one of the things that we heard from our clients, especially as it relates to PPP and EIDL, was just that Congress acted so quickly. There was such a drive to help these small business owners. And when things were really done quickly, there was confusion how to apply, who can apply for these loans, what that process is. And so what SCORE was able to do is set up our Small Business Resilience Program, which paired mentoring, checklists, and step-by-step guides that were industry specific to help these businesses navigate the challenges they're facing. So we saw nearly 600,000 people through that portal to help answer questions in a timely, specific, guided fashion so that we could get them to the right lender, the right program, the right resource. What we have seen is that these guides, mentors from SCORE or other resource programs, are what can really help make these federally funded programs successful. And communication would be helpful across lines, collaborating with other resource partners and other agencies.
Right. And as you say that, I know you recommend more communication. We also have state programs that are now going to be enhancing some of the federal programs. And so that's where I consider SCORE would be a great resource for us to be able to access them. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. And for Mr. Strong, I wanted to ask a question about childcare, which is really important to me as a single mom, how important it is to have reliable, safe childcare. But Mr. Stauber hit that question. But I was just going to ask you, in looking at this model, a lot of businesses, this pandemic is forcing everyone to reimagine their business model. And in response to that demand, what would you say for the SBDC? What could we implement in the rural setting to help people in the pandemic for the future? And how do we best reach out to some of these people in rural settings? Mike, I'm running out of time, but if you could answer real quick, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. I guess I'll yield my time back. All right, sorry.
I lost your audio. I couldn't get the question.
Mr. Chairman, we'll address it in another meeting. Thank you so much. We'll catch up with you in a private setting. Thank you.
Gentlewoman yields. Sorry about the technical difficulties, and we can submit it for the record if you'd like.
Absolutely. We need more broadband. Thank you.
That's the truth. We'll now recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Blaine Lukemeyer from Missouri's 3rd Congressional District. Welcome, Ranking Member Lukemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all of the witnesses. I've been listening in my office and trying to keep a lot of balls in the air this morning here. Apologize for getting here a little late, but you know, one of the things that concerns me that I've been watching here is that, you know, I had a meeting this week with an SBIC group, a small business investor, and they were telling me that they were doing basically what the Navigator proposal in this CARES Act, or the funding bill, actually was doing. So, I mean, I'm curious, you know, they were trying to bring together all the different groups, whether the chamber or libraries, in fact, is one of the groups they were talking about, as well as HB, Historically Black College that they were working with, and some other partners. So if they're already doing this, what is this really necessary? Can you explain to me, Mr. Strong, for instance, can you give me any reason why this is a good deal, or should we continue it, or change it around, or what's your suggestion here?
I'm sorry, Congressman, I lost the last part of your question.
Okay, I was curious as to whether you believed, or what your opinion would be with regards to the necessity of the Community Navigators pilot program here in the COVID relief bill, because I was talking with some folks at SBIC this week, and they do the same thing. There's some SBDC folks that are doing the same thing. So are we duplicating services, I guess, is my question.
Well, I thank you, Congressman. I appreciate the question. And again, it's going to be a challenge. It's always a challenge, especially when Congress is trying to act and is in as robust a fashion as they are. It seems like a lot of these programs are duplicative. But again, I think it's simply going to help increase the outreach and the effectiveness of the partnerships between SCORE, the SBDC, the Women's Business Centers, and all of their local community organizations to provide even greater outreach into markets that haven't historically been very well served. And again, we continue to hear about underserved markets, particularly in communities of color, in rural markets. And again, the more folks we can have out there helping small businesses and potential small businesses, I think the better.
Can you explain to me who all is going to qualify for this money and how they get it?
No, I'm afraid I can't. We haven't gotten the details of the program yet. I've only seen it in concept form. And so again, we're anxiously awaiting what the actual details of the program will be, eligibility criteria, and more importantly, or just as importantly, the metrics and goals that we hope to achieve through the program. And again, I think that speaks to your question about effective use of this funding. We need to have clear-cut goals, we need to have clear-cut eligibility, and we need to have clear-cut metrics for the outcomes of the program to evaluate its success.
If we're delaying, and SBA has got a lot of balls in the air right now. They've got a lot on their plate, and I'm very concerned about that. Working with them on a lot of other issues right now, and if it's going to be a delay in getting this information out, putting this program together, how worthwhile is it if you wait till September to get it done? For instance, is it if we wait, 4 or 5 months here, is it still going to be effective, or is it at that point would be over the hump, so to speak, such that it's not going to be necessary?
Thanks again, Congressman, for the question. I believe that the problem with underserved markets has been around a lot longer than the COVID pandemic. And so again, I think anything that we can do to help increase outreach to those markets is going to be beneficial. If a delay, and hopefully it won't be 4 or 5 months, it'll be a short matter of time before we get clear marching orders on the pilot program anyway. Even that small delay, I don't think is necessarily going to have an overall impact on its effectiveness.
Just a quick question for you with regards to the other programs that are out there. I'm not sure you're involved with them, but just kind of get your opinion on it real quickly. With regards to the restaurant program, for instance, are you working with any of the groups? Do you think that's going to be pretty impactful, those restaurant grants?
I don't think there's a more important program out there than the restaurant grants. But again, we've seen absolutely no details on what it will do or how it will work. But I can tell you again, and Minnesota's not unique here, the hospitality industry has been decimated as a result of COVID and the economic sanctions that took effect as a result of that. So absolutely, we must provide some support to the restaurants and hospitality industry.
Well, I think the chairman for his indulgence here, but I think the key is going to be how these grants are doled out, how they are applied for, and how what kind of oversight is provided over them. Because I think it's a situation that is ripe for fraud if we're not careful. And I think hopefully you'll work with us to provide some expertise in this so that we can find a way to minimize that. With that, I yield back to balance my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman yields. And we would now recognize Representative Maria Salazar from Florida's 27th for 5 minutes.
Yes, and thank you very much, Chairman. I want to congratulate Ms. Pilar Guzman, because I think that you are the epitome of the American dream. And we need more people like you in this country. People that came with really not knowing any English, as you said, but willing to work and to take advantage of this fantastic American dream or the American system that the founding fathers put together for people like you and me. So I think that we not only have love, but gratitude for this country. And I'm sure that you feel the same way. And look, Not only you were able to come, you were able to stay, you learned the language, you went to school, and then you put together a business, came COVID, and the government gave you money so you could keep that business. Where does that happen? Nowhere else. Is that true? Nowhere else. So that's why I congratulate you. And I think that we Hispanic Americans, the first generation, we should celebrate what a fantastic country we have. And that's why I'm in Congress, and you're in business, because we want to keep this system for the future of our children. Am I right?
Yes, I support that 100%.
And I just wanted to ask you, in which way we could spread the word and help other businesses like yours, specifically in our district, Miami and South Florida, in order to, what else do you think we could do in order to send the message and give the info to people like you in order to continue living the American dream?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Congresswoman. I think that it's crucial that we support groups like ABIC, like Impact Fund here in Miami. I saw how hard it was for me, and I am a little bit sophisticated in the sense of, I have systems in place, I have, financials in place. It is so hard as a small business to understand what the PPP was, how to apply to it, if the bank wasn't replying. So, ABIC in that sense helped me connect to the opportunity, because I couldn't, even with all my network in Miami, I could not get the PPP. So imagine the majority of the businesses that don't have that network, that are not mentors to other businesses, that don't have the community connections. They need ABIC, they need Impact Fund. And what I say is, it's great what the SBA, has done, during the crisis and before, but we must recognize that the numbers don't lie. This is not about parties or emotions, it's about numbers. And so we need to look at the numbers, who's getting the finance help, and why is it that the underserving, communities don't have that access to financing. And in this case, the PPP just highlighted the systemic problem we have. And so I think that one of the challenges is that we need more technical assistance. We need more, guidance in how to getting a small loan, because we're lost. Access to information and having these local partners work one-on-one with businesses that already know them. It's important.
And I thank you, because that's why I created a prosperity center within my congressional office. And I'm glad that you're telling me that the information is power. So the more info we put out there into the community for people like you, but like you said, that you had certain knowledge. There are many other businesses that are not as sophisticated or have as much information as you have. So thank you for that. I'm not sure if I have to yield my time back, or if I have a few more minutes. I don't have the
You still got a minute to go if you'd like to ask another question.
I could have, yes. And now let me ask you this. What about the, like you were saying, I have to definitely recognize the local people in the Impact Fund, our local partners with the American Business Immigration Council, ABIC, to help you connect and to give you those tools and that information, that technology, or know that information, basically basic knowledge, in order to be able to navigate the system and get to the money. Now, the info in Spanish, even though you were knowledgeable in English, what else can we do for those people that also want to live the American dream, but still do not understand the literature in English? What have you found out there? Do we need to promote more material in Spanish?
Yes, I mean, I think that first we need to just have the information available. People were lost in the process. Like nobody know what to do with the PPP. And so, yes, it will be very helpful to have it in Spanish, as the majority of our businesses here locally are Spanish speaker businesses. So certainly that's important, and that's, I think, one of the barriers for many of our businesses.
Thank you very much for that info. Thank you, Ms. Guzman. Looking forward to meet you when I go down to Miami.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Wish you a lot more éxitos and success
in opening up many more Half Moon Empanadas shops. All right,
Thank
yield
you.
back. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask a few more questions, so second round, if members can bear with me. I certainly recognize if you're not able to stick it out, however, Mr. Hagedorn, but if you do have more questions, I'd be happy to recognize you after.
Yeah.
And thank you to the witnesses. Just a few more questions. One of them, I guess I'll just follow up with you, Ms. Zavala, because that was a really good exchange right there. Early on in the pandemic, my office was hearing from many businesses who were very eager for help from EIDL, from PPP, had a lot of questions. SBA staff were very busy working with the Treasury trying to build the program, and as a result, people were really struggling to get information. One of the things that the American Rescue Plan authorizes at SBA is a call center where business owners such as yourself could call to get information. How do I apply? What are the guidelines? Many people were very concerned about taking the loan, not knowing how they might qualify for forgiveness. These types of questions were everywhere. And as you said earlier, people were very concerned. Do you think that having a call center that you could have called at the beginning when you were contemplating the Paycheck Protection Program and things like EIDL would have been helpful, and would you have called it if it had existed?
Hi, thank you for the question, Chairman. Yes, I mean, I think that as much as the information is what was missing, the access is what sometimes people were lost. Even in before the pandemic, think about it. Like, where do you get financing? I get those questions all the time when I do mentorship. I get texts from companies, from people where I need support for this financing wise. Nobody, there's a lack of information. And so, yes, a call center, there was an effort here in Miami led by the City Foundation where they put together a website with specific questions about where to get the help during COVID, the loans or the individual help. And so, of course, those are important efforts.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to say, just thinking about the early weeks and months of the pandemic and the emergency it caused for a lot of small businesses, I actually had almost my entire team establish what we called like a big of a task force, completely focused on aiding small businesses in accessing EIDL and PPP. Even my DC staff were on the phone lines trying to develop expertise to connect business owners with assistance. And, I think it was one of the beautiful things that this committee really took part in early on, having had the PPP established. It wasn't perfect. We had to roll it out. And there was a lot of great oversight work done by the entire committee that resulted in follow-on actions that improved the program over time and more accurately targeted it where it needed to be to have the biggest impact as time went on. A really important effort. One thing you may be aware, maybe you're not, I actually voted against the American Rescue Plan, but as chairman of the subcommittee, I certainly intend to take part in that kind of collaborative oversight to make sure that these programs are very successful for all the businesses that are out there. Certainly, there's a lot of need that remains. So another question I wanted to ask for Ms. Shi. You ran the pilot program on the Community Navigator program in various different states. Could you talk a little bit about some of the issues you came across that SBA and this committee should be aware of in order to avoid those same mistakes occurring as the program rolls out nationally? You're muted. I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead, try again. looks like we may have some technical difficulties. We'll submit that one for the record.
Oh, is this better?
Yes, there we go.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, so some of the issues that we identified were the access to lenders, were for the sole proprietors, the Schedule C issues of not being able to have a fuller relief through the calculating with the gross income, and I would just say that because these were the boots on the ground and sounds similar, Chairman, with your office, almost seems like you had your whole team as navigators, but really holding these small businesses' hands to get these loans and then helping to turn the loans into the grants were some of the issues, and that we reflected back to the committee, to the Chairwoman Velasquez, and thank you for her leadership on this, and to try to get the program major improvements over time, as we have seen. And then just the other issue, I think a couple of times that has come up about the accountability and the anti-fraud measures. The other thing that we did in our program is to make sure that navigators and organizations that weren't producing, that were not helping businesses get the money in the bank, were defunded from the program, right? So that we're in a pandemic, we're in an emergency, we require high performance, and that these businesses like DLARS and even smaller employers do get the funds that they deserve and do it quickly. So,
Thank you. My time has expired on the second round, so I did want to make sure to offer an opportunity for further questions to the ranking member.
I have no more questions at this time. I'd be happy to yield you or our ranking member for any further questions, but thank you.
Well, I want to thank all of our witnesses for joining us today and all of the feedback that you provided, and certainly appreciate you bearing with us through all the technical difficulties that exist out there. As some people have commented on the side here, more evidence of the need for this committee to stay focused on access to high-speed internet, particularly for small business owners all over America. And I think I heard the ranking member comment he looks forward to having everyone back in the committee. I couldn't agree more. But with that, just some closing remarks. To the witnesses, your testimony today will be valuable as the administration in this committee moves forward to stand up and fine-tune the Community Navigator program. For nearly a year, COVID has hit underserved agricultural and rural small businesses particularly hard. Congress has taken many steps to make relief programs, such as the Paycheck Protection Program, EIDL, and others out there for small businesses, more accessible, equitable, and to ensure that our small businesses get the greatest, greatest help out of this Congress in these programs as possible. But certainly, there's always room to continue to make improvements. Today, we've heard about the impact that this program could have in underserved small businesses. That's why committee members need to do everything we can to ensure that the program is stood up and run effectively and efficiently without waste and getting the help into the hands of those who need it the most. So with that, I look forward to continuing to work with my fellow committee members and the committee staff as we take a look at the rollout of this program and continue to support things like the Paycheck Protection Program, as we just extended the ability of small businesses to access that program through the remainder of the month of March. With that, I think I'll go ahead and close it out and ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record, and without objection, so ordered.